McLaren's Formula 1 car finally gets a much anticipated upgrade at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix as the team bids to fix its weaknesses and salvage its 2023 targets. But the MCL60's first facelift is unlikely to completely transform its competitive prospects, having been at best a bang average midfielder so far. That's why, backed by the optimism of some major personnel changes behind the scenes, McLaren's once again talking about future improvements, including another major upgrade package this year that's been tentatively compared to bringing a B-spec car. A late change of development direction in 2022 meant that McLaren started this season with its MCL60 in a more basic form, and the Azerbaijan Grand Prix is the first proper chance to upgrade it this year. We're expecting to see revisions around the side pods and floor, particularly the floor edge, as this is the area McLaren realised late last year it was pursuing the wrong design philosophy. But while this upgrade has been readied, McLaren's also conducted a major technical upheaval and ousted the technical director behind it. James Key's been replaced with a 3-person technical executive team, but the Baku upgrade will be the result of the previous regime as it was signed off months ago. In Key's time in charge, McLaren proved quite adept at catching up with rivals and replicating good ideas from other teams. So McLaren should be reasonably confident that this upgrade will result in a decent step in the right direction, with the team even suggesting it could be worth a few tenths of a second. So it's still expecting this to be the start of the improvement of its car issues, mainly aerodynamic efficiency, which means it's in the unenviable position of needing to add downforce while also suffering from too much drag. Whatever technical setup the team had, the Baku upgrade was always going to be just the first step in any recovery plan. In fact, there are 3 significant rounds of upgrades planned in 2023, all of which McLaren expects to be worth a few tenths of a second, with the aim of having the 4th fastest car by the end of the year. The Baku one is the first major upgrade, while the second package is due before the summer break and should be properly influenced by the revised technical structure. The 3rd major upgrade will arrive during the second half of the year after the summer shutdown. The second upgrade package will be the most wide-ranging and the changes will be more obvious. Team principal Andrea Stella has caveated it quite a lot, but he's even compared it to being a B-spec car. This will almost certainly not be a full B-spec, as that's reserved for when the chassis itself changes, which just isn't possible in the cost cap era. But it shows just how much McLaren is planning to overhaul the car design, or at least how much it's willing to promise will change. If it's not that dramatic or doesn't feature even a few glimpses of original ideas, it will be disappointing. And even if there are bigger changes to come, it will also be a letdown if McLaren doesn't take a clear step in performance almost immediately, given how much the Baku upgrade was talked up when McLaren was managing expectations at the start of the season. McLaren's massive reshuffle is not a knee-jerk reaction to a bad start to 2023, but the hands of the hierarchy have been forced by an underwhelming development rate in F1's new ground effect era and a looming switch to much anticipated brand new development tools that McLaren cannot afford to waste. McLaren Racing CEO Zak Brown started to question whether structural changes were required in the second half of 2022, and the end of season team boss change, when Andreas Seidel left to join Sauber and allowed Stella to be promoted at McLaren, was a catalyst for the restructuring. It implies Seidel was more resistant to change, whereas Stella was given the mandate to make whatever revisions he deemed necessary and decided to act quite swiftly. We hear that Stella will be more hands-on with the technical side, whereas Seidel left the management of that to Key as technical director. Stella hopes for the new technical structure to impact things in 2023 because he is adamant it will accelerate the development rate as well as encourage better ideas. But this is obviously a longer term play designed to make sure McLaren achieves that much talked about goal of being a proper front-running team again by 2025. One element that compromises the short-term prospect of the reshuffle is that one key element of it is going to be missing until next January. The multi-person technical executive team that will replace Key includes ex-Ferrari head of vehicle concept David Sanchez. He will eventually lead the conceptual work at McLaren, but the keyword there is eventually, because Sanchez is on gardening leave from Ferrari and will not be able to join McLaren until next January. Stella's admitted that means a transition period is necessary, and some measures have been put in place to compensate for Sanchez's absence. This includes more hands-on input from Stella himself, as we alluded to before, but also deploying a McLaren design legend. Neil Oakley, a key member of McLaren's design team for decades, including 5 title-winning cars from 1989 to 1999, still works for the racing division as Director of Design and Development, but will take on more responsibilities for F1 during this transition. McLaren will also rely on senior members from its vehicle performance and race engineering departments to step up and help fill any gaps in concept design and performance analysis. In addition to the management level changes McLaren's initiated, the team's been conducting a significant engineering recruitment drive since last year. This is to rectify a personnel deficit it created by cutting its team too much to get prepared for the cost cap in 2021. McLaren's not commenting on individual names, but its hires are reported to include Aston Martin's Chief of Aerodynamic Technology, Mariano Alperin, formerly Honda's and then Sauber's Head of Aerodynamics. In our video explaining McLaren's overhauled technical organisation, we touched on how it looks on the surface quite similar to a problematic and much derided structure from the team's not too distant past. But now we've heard the team's side of that and the case for the defence, so it's interesting to explore this in a bit more detail. An aerospace-inspired matrix arrangement was adopted by McLaren in the early 2000s under Martin Whitmarsh, sharing leadership responsibilities across multiple departments. It led to patterns of 3 across the technical leadership, for example Adrian Newey, Tim Goss and Paddy Lowe, or latterly Goss, Peter Prodromou and Matt Morris. But the 3 technical heads setup was picked apart as Zak Brown assumed more control in the late 2010s and overhauled the structure. Goss and Morris were ousted and a traditional setup with 1 technical head, James Key, was installed. But now Key's gone and been replaced by a 3-person technical executive team. But Stella, who experienced the final years of the old flawed arrangement, insists the only common thing in that organisation and this one is the number 3. Stella's indicated that he felt McLaren needed to remodel its technical team to ensure it was hitting 3 key areas of car performance: aerodynamics led by Peter Prodromou, car concept led by Sanchez, and engineering led by Neil Haldie. McLaren believes that unlike in the Matrix era, this makes it very clear who's responsible for what, and Stella hopes it will prompt better, quicker decision making. There's been a clear implication that Key's technical leadership was restrictive, whether by accident or design. Stella says that Prodromou, who is still highly regarded in F1 circles as a leading aerodynamics man, was underutilised, and that the aerodynamics team in general lacked empowerment. Elevating Prodromou to a position of greater seniority and freeing him from whatever shackles were perceived to be on him in the previous structure therefore went hand in hand in shaping the new system. As for speed of development, Stella says McLaren was not very good at using common sense when balancing up the scientific demands of F1 with the need to develop quickly, hinting that McLaren was inefficient in signing off upgrades and getting them on the car. This all points to another key distinction between Stella's vision and the Matrix comparison, that the origins are very different. The current change is viewed as a necessity to unleash the potential of McLaren's development team, whereas Newey always felt the Matrix system was introduced out of spite and an act of revenge from then McLaren boss Ron Dennis in response to Newey's attempt to leave to join Jaguar. Newey called the resulting technical structure an unnecessarily complex and wretchedly unworkable system, and obviously McLaren doesn't want to go down that road again. Instead, it insists the new technical structure is designed to address specific weaknesses that were holding back the organisation, without bringing back the question marks over who is actually in charge and the problems associated with that. Whether that proves successful or goes the same way as the failed technical changes that have preceded it over the past 20 years or so will take some time to understand. But the first answers will come from the batch of big 2023 upgrades that McLaren has raised expectations for.